Whether your fantasy playoffs start this week or next week, one thing is very clear, which is that kickers and defenses are the easiest way to give yourselves a weekly edge over your opponents. And that's why I go through top 12 kicker rankings every week for fantasy, and we're doing it for week 14. And I'm already one of the only fantasy YouTubers who covers kickers every single week. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, get into our first tier. We've got our top two kickers, in my opinion, of this season with Jason Myers and Kaimi Fairbairn. Jason Myers has been absolutely tremendous. My one concern with him over the last several weeks was that this guy usually misses several kicks a year. His accuracy has never been fantastic, but this year it really doesn't matter. 12 fantasy points for a kicker. Tell me what your RB2 is getting on a weekly basis, fantasy points per game. Or your wide receiver too. This is a guy that's out there on waivers still, and you can pick this guy up and ride him the rest of the season, which is exactly what I would do. When you're kicking 38 extra points and 33 field goals in a season, that tells me that regardless of whether it's a touchdown or if it's a field goal, you're getting opportunities every single possession basically, and every time your offense has the ball. So Jason Myers, I don't care what matchup is, and this week he's obviously going to Atlanta to take on the Falcons defense. That is a great matchup. It's a great offense for a kicker, and I want Jason Myers at 1. Kaimi Fairbairn going to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs on Sunday night. Now, this is a big game for both teams, so I would imagine you're going to see both teams bring their best as they're trying to make a playoff push. Now, here's the thing with Kaimi Fairbairn, is he's still on an offense that, regardless of what the matchup is, it doesn't really matter because this team doesn't score that many touchdowns, and they're always stalling out in drives because of a sack here or there or a missed throw by CJ Stroud. That is just part of the deal with the Houston offense, and that's why Fairbairn is averaging 11.6 fantasy points per game, 30 field goals compared to 16 extra points. That's an ideal situation for a kicker, and this is an ideal matchup for a kicker as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got Brandon Aubrey at number 3, and he's going to Detroit on Thursday to take on the Lions. Again, big game for both teams right here, which leads me to believe that both of these teams will put their best foot forward, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Now, the one thing that you kind of have to wonder is if, with this Cowboys offense, they've been so hot lately, and they're one of the hottest teams in the league. Are they going to slow down and just kick more field goals in this one? Because Aubrey's problem a lot of the season has been upside games. And he just had a 12-point game, which is really good. But he hasn't hit that 17, 20-point ceiling like he has in previous years because this offense has been so efficient. So I do kind of wonder what Detroit matchup holds for them. If Detroit can bring themselves up for a massive game like this and maybe shut down the offense more. But either way, this offense is scoring so much, and Aubrey's floor is so high, I can't have him outside of the top 3 this particular matchup. Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals is a fast riser right now, and he's going to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Now, this weather is not ideal. Obviously, it's in Buffalo in December, not usually ideal weather. But the thing is, Evan McPherson is in Cincinnati, and they face bad weather all the time. And Evan McPherson in this matchup, I think, has a lot of good upside. This guy has a 60-plus yard leg still. Do not forget this. And he's only missed 3 field goals this year. And their offense is starting to come on because Joe Burrow is back, and they're not super efficient all the time. He kicked 6 field goals last week for 24 points. This guy, even with Flacco, had a 17-point ceiling. I believe that Evan McPherson is on a lot of waivers right now and should not be, because this week I think he's a top 5 play again. And then Harrison Butker at number 5 to round out this tier, and he's taking on the Texans in that Sunday night matchup. Once again, I do believe that this is a matchup where both teams are going to get up because it's a must-win for both teams. The Texans defense, we already know, is one of the best in the league. Probably only second best behind the Seattle Seahawks, but give or take on any weekly basis, it could be the Texans. And the Chiefs offense has already been very lethargic in certain weeks as well. So this does seem like a matchup that Harrison Butker could kick about 3 or 4 field goals in, and maybe just being a lower scoring field goal fest. I do think his ceiling is really high, but I also think his floor is really high as well, because the Kansas City Chiefs have to win this one. They're going to put up a good offensive performance. But like I said earlier, Evan McPherson, Harrison Butker, these guys are on waiver wires right now. And it has never been more of an opportunistic time and more critical to your team's success to utilize our automatic waiver tool to pick up these kickers after priority waiver claims run through. Because every night what happens is that there's automatic waiver claims that run through as priority ads, but then after that, at 3 a.m. once waivers clear, everyone's getting up to get a mad dash to the waivers and grab the rest of the best remaining free agents for free. Our system has automated that process for you so you can sleep through the night and still beat everyone to the waiver wire. You'll also get access to my weekly top 250 rankings, the comparison feature, and the league sync up feature as well. And if you refer a friend, you and your friend will both get a first free month. And if you just want to do a full team breakdown from me where we just go through your entire team, we prepare you for the playoffs, make sure your team is set on a live stream with live back and forth dialogue. You can also do a team breakdown from me as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we've got Cameron Dicker of the Los Angeles Chargers. He's taking on the Philadelphia Eagles at home on Monday night. So here's where we need to start off with the week of the Chargers fantasy options. I am assuming that with a broken, non-throwing hand, Justin Herbert will be playing. So I do believe that Cameron Dicker's upside is just as high as it is every other week, which is really, really high. Cameron Dicker has also been in position to where he's scoring on every single possession they have as well. 28 field goal attempts, 27 extra point attempts. Very balanced, gives you a good floor and a massive upside potential. So this guy taking on the Philadelphia Eagles after 2 straight losses, that bothers me a little bit, considering the Eagles' pass rush has gotten stronger and the offensive line of the Chargers is definitely weak. That's kind of causing Justin Herbert to get pounded on a weekly basis, which could be good or it could be bad. Sometimes they might get tossed out of field goal range. Sometimes they might not make it there, but other times they might stall out in a drive and then give him an opportunity to kick a field goal. So I do think Dicker's floor is not as high this week probably, and that's why he's a little lower this week, but I do still think that his ceiling, as long as Herbert is there, is very, very high. And then Chris Boswell at number 7 with Tyler Loop in that same matchup at number 8, and they're going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens, and this is a game that feels like a field goal fest to me. It really does. And Chris Boswell the last several weeks has not been great because this offense is failing really fast. And I do think that's a massive concern. But the other thing I will say with this one is that the Ravens defense just took a massive step back against the Bengals. And I do feel like this matchup is going to be one the Steelers get up for. Trust me, I want Tomlin to get fired as a Steelers fan, but I know the nature of this team. And it's usually that they don't want him to have a losing season. They're teetering on that right now. So I expect him to give a good performance, get down there several times, and give Chris Boswell at least 3 field goal opportunities to have a massive week. And then Tyler Loop, same type of deal. I think it's a field goal fest. We already know Lamar is not playing at 100% right now. And we also know that their offense just looks lethargic and slow this year. So I don't think that they're going to absolutely put up 30 points on the board against the Steelers defense, even though it's also getting worse as well. I just will say this. Mike Tomlin's record against Lamar Jackson is very good. He knows how to beat Lamar, and I do think that they're still good enough to get you down there in range as a kicker, but I don't think that they're going to kick many extra points, which does leave him in a lower floor situation, but with a high ceiling in this game. Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears at number 9. He's going to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Historically, not gone well for the Bears against the Packers. But I will say this, they're a much different team with Ben Johnson at the helm at head coach. They're a much better, more efficient offense. And Cairo Santos has had really good performances in fantasy. He's averaging 9.4 fantasy points per game. And I do think that if you had him for an entire season, he'd be a top 7 to 6 kicker in fantasy. I mean, his last 6 games, 11 points, 11.6, 16, 8, and 6. So his floor has really solidified to a really stable level. This one does feel like one of those, again, possible field goal fest where he could have a really high ceiling in. I just don't trust them against the Packers defense quite yet until I see it with my own eyes. So I'm fading him a little bit this week just off of the uncertainty of how the matchup goes, but I do still think the ceiling is relatively high, and the floor is also pretty high as well. Dropping down to our last tier, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is at number 10, and he's taking on the New Orleans Saints. This matchup feels pretty good. I don't have a problem with it. The only problem I have with it is that this feels like one of those games where they could just get a lot of touchdowns and get 4 extra point attempts for Chase McLaughlin and 0 field goal kicks. I will say this as well. Chase McLaughlin's last 2 months not been great because this Bucs offense has definitely gotten worse. Their playmakers aren't as explosive as they once were. Baker Mayfield doesn't look as good. But Chase McLaughlin still came away with 10 points against the Cardinals last week. So that does kind of make me feel inclined to be like, okay, maybe this offense isn't as bad as I once thought, especially against an inferior opponent, which the Saints definitely are. So I do still think that Chase McLaughlin will get in the range plenty for him to be able to have a solid enough week to be a top 10 kicker. Michael Badgley of the Indianapolis Colts going to Jacksonville to take on the Jags, and Cam Little in that same matchup rounds us out at 12. Now these two guys, I do think that they've both been really hot and cold, and I think that their offenses are, again, in for a slugfest this week. This feels like a slugfest type of game. There are a lot of divisional matchups on the line this weekend, and I will tell you that that is usually a good thing for kickers in fantasy football. We've got 6 kickers in the top 12 with 3 division-deciding matchups here, and I do think that Michael Badgley in this position actually has a pretty safe ceiling. I think that his floor is definitely the problem because his floor this past week was 5 points is what he got against the Houston Texans. I think they'll be able to move the ball probably a little better against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I still don't think that his floor is that safe. But Cam Little, on the other hand, he can kick it from anywhere. I mean, we all know that Cam Little's leg is really big. He has a 68, 70-yard range, which is absolutely insane, but he's not very consistent. And that's been my one problem with Cam Little all year, is that he misses kicks here and there, and he has a really teeny tiny floor of getting 0 points for you, of getting 1 point for you. Any of those are on the table. But his last 5, 15 points, 13, 5, 13, and 6. So again, still a little inconsistent there, and it goes how the offense goes, but I do think this is a matchup they can take advantage of. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below, and if you want to see this week's top 12 defense rankings, click on this video right here.